it's pretty wild to think we try to gather every 2 weeks, and how quickly 2 weeks have gone by with the holiday, even though there was so much sitting around, because you can't do all the things anymore.
Yeah,
It still goes by fast.
it does go fast. Goes by a little too fast. Yesterday was kind of a difficult day to get back into the grind, but the
Yep.
weather sure helps, and
Yes.
we're off and running.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We're having a pretty mild Minnesota winter. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable that we're in the 20s and 30s here when we're usually in the 10s, and January gets kind of icky, and our coldest days in Minnesota is always that February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th tends to be that rock bottom coldest day of our year. So with this, this is great. We can't complain.
Yes.
So yeah, we had a kind of a mild winter last year, and we had an early spring market in Minnesota in January. We kind of had that March frenzy in January, and I think we're going to have that anyway because of the frenzy in the market. But I thought today we'd get together and talk about second home purchases, vacations. In Minnesota, we call them cabins. Wisconsin, they call them cottages. I mean, we've got all these things. It's been a huge topic. When there isn't much to talk about in the last year, I tell you, there's a lot of conversations amongst my friends about what does a second home look like, because you start to think about retirement.
Yes, it's a great way to diversify your portfolio as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a few years ago, we were talking to our financial advisor about a second home and, reallocating some of our funds if we were going to do that. And the point that he made was, it's a liquid asset. If you have it for, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you feel like it's not for you, you can always sell it and use your money for something else. So it's a real nice piece of a leveraged asset that if you get some appreciation, you could even look at it from that perspective as well. You're buying a property we expect will appreciate. You're paying the mortgage down, and you can create wealth as you do, obviously, in your primary house.
Absolutely. Yeah. Plus, it gives you a place to go, gives you somewhere to hide now that people know and know what working from home feels like and is going to look like. Making that investment even makes more sense now to them than it did before. We're starting, typically we see people buying their second homes within 3-4 hours of their primary residence when they have younger children. Then once children kind of move out of the nest, then we see people buying those second homes, in those, southern states, or, possibly even, further up north, Minnesota, if you're really that daring. So, it's been pretty interesting to see the conversation on this topic. I'm blessed with a family cabin, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's fun to have that luxury, and actually for people to use it more than they ever have before. So
we moved here from Chicago, and it seemed like in our neighborhood when we first came in, everyone had a cabin, and I'm thinking, how can everyone afford to have a second home? And so many of them had just been passed down from families. What a great way to spend your summer. So, I've thought about this now. One of the benefits of COVID is so many can work now from remote locations. Who wants to be in a high-rise downtown Minneapolis, or would you rather be on your lake home throughout the summer, working out next to the beach?
It's so funny you say that about cabin owning here in Minnesota, because I move a lot of people here from other parts of the country, and I'm just like, okay, here's the deal. Friday at noon, the offices are dead back in the normal years, and everybody retreats to their cabin, and they're like, what does that mean? And just want to explain to them that people literally are gone for weekends to their second home, family home that they've owned for decades. For the weekend, and they're like, oh, cool. And I'm like, and it is the biggest compliment you can get is when someone invites you to go to their cabin too.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes. Absolutely.
You're in.
And, a cabin in the winter is pretty awesome as well. You can go ice fishing, snowmobiling, just get away. We have definitely seen in doing a little bit of online shopping, looking at second homes, there have been so many on the market that have gone so quickly.
Yes.
The market has definitely changed within the last year for second homes.
Absolutely. I got some great stats here. Leading in with that, 68% of cabins or second homes or vacation homes, whatever we're going to call them, 68% are selling in less than a month.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
crazy because some of these properties, well, you know, they'll be on the market, you know, a quarter or two, depending on price and if the
Yeah.
person is realistic, you know, in the condition.
Yeah.
But that kind of turn is something that we see in our metros.
Yes.
Very common, you know, a year ago. Now our market time is much less than a month. So,
Yep.
yeah, overall, second home purchases have increased, NAR reported, by 44% from
Unbelievable.
19 to year 20. So, and most of the stats that I have are really just showing that summer months, kind of June to September.
Mhm.
So we don't have the most recent, but it is really some huge numbers. There's a big list of about 20 of the fastest growing counties for second homes.
Hmm.
In Minnesota, there was 3 Minnesota counties on that list. And I know, this is wild. So the very first one was Itasca County.
Yep.
That had a 137% increase from 19. So that's
Unbelievable.
the Grand Rapids area.
Yep.
Okay, 137%. Whoa, there must be,
Wow.
I don't know, there must be some something going on up there that I don't know about. That sounds pretty fun. I mean, they've got a couple of amazing lakes, you know.
Lake
And
Mille
then-
Lacs. Yep.
And then Cass County has seen an increase of 44%, and that is the Bemidji area.
Yep.
And then lastly is a 22% increase in Crow County, which is the Brainerd Lakes area.
Yep.
So I thought Cass County would be higher, but it's not. But still, to make that list of the top 20 fastest growing counties for second homes, we have 3 of those counties. That's amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It our neighbors own a house on Lake Mille Lacs,
Mhm.
and what I really like about that, they're up to their cabin in less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and we this past summer we rented a cabin in Annandale,
Yep.
and we were there in less than an hour. You
That's
know,
pretty nice.
I mean, so many great places out here. It's like you don't only have one area to go in the Twin Cities to find a lake home.
Yep.
You could go south, east, west, north. It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Where you're going to bump into a lot of lakes no matter which direction you go.
Yes.
So we want to talk about financing this whole
Yes.
situation, but you immediately made me think when it comes to windshield time, because it's tough to go to Bemidji and spend 5 hours in your car, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
This was a few years ago. I had a client that owned a really nice home here in the Twin Cities, in like Edina, super nice home. And then he wanted to have a small little cabin out on Ponca for just buzzing out on the weekends, get on the lake, you know, just almost a knockover, but not really.
Yep.
And it was amazing going through that process because it was a little challenging because the cabin or the second home was within like 25 miles.
Yes.
Is that still a thing? Because that was it was a risk for the borrower or for the lender.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I have a client right now that we're working with to refinance. And about 8 years ago, we had the same situation. We refinanced his primary, which was 15 miles from his lake home.
Yep.
And it was the same thing. And we put a letter together and it made total sense. The reality is the second home has to make sense. And we've seen some clients who are trying to pass off an investment property as a second home so they can get better rates.
Yep.
But in this case, you know, it was 15 miles away, but it was on a lake. It made total sense. I didn't have a problem with it. But distance sometimes can matter. If it's on a lake, you're typically not going to have any issues. If it's not on a lake, it could get a little trickier.
Yep.
But we paint the picture and present that into underwriting and, you know, explain the situation. And typically you're not going to have a problem with it.
Yeah, you just might take a couple of days just to chat it out and get some documents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I thought that was just so interesting because most people do. They go the hour or two or plus out,
Yes.
but this is a close one. So tell me, Brian. Someone's just thinking about this. Maybe they're early to the game, second home. Now it's they weren't going to do it till they're in their mid-50s, but now maybe they're in their late 40s, and they're like, why don't we do this now? Financially, what needs to be in place?
So whenever you have a second home, obviously it doesn't have any income to it. So we are going to count that entire payment against the borrower's debt.
Mm-hmm.
So their income has to support their current house, the full payment on the second home, and any other consumer debt that they have. 99% of the time, the numbers are always going to work because, in my opinion, underwriting is very aggressive. We allow you to use 45% of your gross earnings to cover all housing and consumer debt. So the typical borrower that I see is, I don't know, probably between 20 and 35% typically, especially someone who's established. You're going to need to put down 10%.
Okay.
So that's the minimum down payment. You're going to have mortgage insurance with that. But here's the interesting point. So let's consider that someone has perfect credit. They're putting down 10%. If I were to ask you, Amy, what kind of interest rate do you think someone would get on a primary residence today with 10% down and excellent credit? What do you think the rate on a 30-year fixed rate would be?
Like 2.5, 2.75, something like that.
2.375.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I just
Now,
can't believe it.
second home,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think the rate would be on a second home?
At least another full point.
Okay, it's 2.375. It's the same rate. So
Really?
there's just a slight pricing hit. So if you're familiar with the term points, that's that's the fee that's associated with whatever rate you pick. If you took a primary residence at 2.375, you'd have no points.
Yeah.
If you bought a second home at 2.375, you'd pay about 0.3% of a point. So the closing cost difference on a $315,000 loan is $778. It's a one-time cost.
Yeah.
Phenomenal rates. There is a slight difference in the mortgage insurance premium.
Okay.
So a second home has slightly higher MI, but on that $315,000 house, it'd be $73 a month. On a primary residence, it'd be $44 a month. Not a huge difference.
Yeah.
Mortgages are basically risk-based.
Right.
So a primary, you're always going to be motivated to stay in that house. Second home, if you ran into trouble, perhaps you would let that house go, or get into financial difficulty. That might be the last one to pay on.
Right.
So the mortgage insurance companies put just a little buffer in there, and they charge a slightly higher premium, but still you're getting the same 30-year fixed rate.
Wow.
2.375, which gives you huge buying power opportunities.
Wow. So what if someone wanted to buy that second home and they wanted to strictly, Airbnb it, rent it out for 90% of the time, and maybe go wherever for a couple weekends.
Yeah.
Do the numbers still illustrate somewhat the same?
It all depends on how it's presented. So I have had clients in the past that bought a house as a second home, and after a year or two, they decided, I'd like to test the waters on Airbnb and do some short-term renting. No issues there whatsoever. It becomes an ethical situation. If you have someone that's absolutely buying a second home on a lake with the full intent of renting it out, you really have to disclose that with that intent, because then you would get non-owner occupied rates. So you would have to put down a minimum of 15%. Your rate would probably be about 3%. It kind of depends on your initial interest. Typically on the mortgage, when you're signing the documents, you're stating that you intend on being the primary resident of that property for the first year. After the first year or shortly before that period, you can pretty much do anything you want to with it. So it all kind of depends on how the file looks and how it's presented. Obviously I'm always going to be highly ethical on the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have that conversation with the client up front. And I've had some that basically said, okay, well, we won't do anything regarding Airbnb until, we've had the property for a full year.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to renting, so let's say that your borrower has a second home, they've lived in it for a year, and now they really want to kind of commit that to full rental, and they want to take advantage of that income and qualify to offset that monthly payment. If you're doing an Airbnb, that's very difficult because those don't have long-term leases.
Right.
And underwriting is going to require that we have 2 years of a history with that kind of rent. Whereas if I have someone who has a long-term tenant, all I need is a copy of the lease or the tax returns that match up with that.
Right.
And I can use that income to offset the debt. So those are things that you definitely want to have conversation with, not only in the present, but what's your intent with the property? Do you intend on buying more? So we make sure we set them up for success and that they understand how all these pieces fit into the puzzle.
Right, right. You mentioned a minimum of, 10 or 15%, depending on your strategy with the property. The more I look into it, it seems like there's even people, because they're at a certain situation, time in their life, that the cash down is very common to even go up to 50%.
Yeah. What's really amazing is you could buy a second home. You could take a loan on your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
You could liquidate funds out of an investment account. You could take a gift from family members for the down payment. On a $350,000 purchase, you only need $35,000 for your down payment. So there are many opportunities at of the funds that you can use. Whereas on an investment property, it all has to basically be your money. You could still borrow from a 401k, but you can't get any gift funds from a family member. I just closed on a property up in Brainerd, and we had 2 different families that went in on the transaction. So the application was 2 separate families. They both kind of split the down payment, and they switch off, when they want to go up and vacation at the house.
That is a fantastic thing to do. Or I hear that of families too, 2 siblings, 2 uncles, whatever, buying something together.
Yeah.
As long as you get along, right?
Yes.
Put it in writing, make a plan, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I've heard some interesting quotes about second homes. For example, you only live once. It's something you think about and you dream about. And I think we've all learned that you do only live once, and go for it,
Yep.
You know in your gut if it's the right fit. Because the market is moving so fast, my advice to anybody looking for a second home is, reach out to us. You need to find an agent, your trusted agent here that can refer you to someone that's going to treat you the same in that new location.
Yes.
Because the market's moving quickly, you want someone that is an online type of agent, because the video tours, you can't sometimes drop and go drive 4 hours to see something. So, you really need someone that's going to be all hands on deck in the new location, doing videos, really start a ton of research online about blogs and learn about the communities. It's easy to do when you live in Lakeville and you're going to buy a home in Lakeville. You can drive around, you can see it, you live it already. But you're going to want to, and it's sometimes hard in those kind of places to find really good information online, because, there's just not as many great websites and blogs as there are here. Yeah. But really doing a lot of online research is gonna win you the best. Learning more about the area, lakes, trails, snowmobiling, all of that sort of stuff. But making sure that you have an agent that is going to be doing those video tours, because sometimes those listings, especially on lakes, are pocket listings where that agent just, hey, they know the person and they might sell. Or if it does come online, that they can go out there and show it to you, because there is a lot of sales that happen sight unseen for second homes, even more than first residence, I believe.
Well, one of our leaders in our mortgage company lives on a lake, and she's basically told me, if you're interested in this lake at all, just let me know. Yep. Because I know so many of our neighbors, and we'll spread the word out, and we'll keep an eye out. So 100% absolute truth.
Yeah. And in prior years, before COVID, BC, you know, someone would go to look for a second home, and the sales process was literally from start to finish on average 2 years.
Jeez.
This has cut it in half.
Wow.
This is absolutely cut it in half. I mean, people were taking that search and finishing it in just a few months.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so you know, time is definitely feels slower, but a lot of other things are moving rather quickly. So
I think a lot of people have been caught because in the past history, if the house doesn't sell, maybe by fall, you know, they just kind of realize that they're not going to get any traction if you're listing and selling a house, and that has totally changed in the last year.
yeah, things are different, and it's going to continue into this year too. It's going to be a lot of the same. So yeah, well, this was awesome. I think this is excellent. If there are people out there that are looking for a second home, vacation, cabin, cottage, all that good stuff, please reach out to Brian and I. Would love to have a conversation with you, give you some tips. Brian, of course, is licensed in many states, so your second home in Arizona and Florida is all something he can help you with. You know, but and I love, and I have great networks with other agents, because I think the best part about being a realtor is the network that we create. So to get somebody into the right hands and the right person that's going to treat them the way they want to be treated or educated through the process is key. So if anybody has plans for a second home in 2021, please reach out to Brian and I. We would love a chance to get you started on this path. So
yes.
Awesome.
Happy New Year. Let's make it a great one.
Exactly. Happy New Year, Brian. It was good to see you. We'll talk soon.
Good to see you. Okay. Thanks, Amy.
Bye.
Talk to you later.